Hello.
They say revenge is a dish best served cold. When my wife of 20 years suggested an open marriage after I caught her cheating, I didn't explode. I didn't beg. I changed the locks and invited her younger sister to stay with me. What happened next shocked everyone, including me. I never planned for her sister's smile to feel like sunrise after the longest night. I never expected to find myself trapped between loyalty and desire. And I definitely never thought my wife would return, demanding I choose between. My name is Lance Blair. I'm 43 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had the perfect life. Executive director at Crawford Financial, a beautiful home in the Boston suburbs, two amazing sons, and a wife of 20 years whom I loved more than anything. Well, almost anything. My pride came first, as it turns out. And thank God for that. Gloria and I met in college. She was studying art history, and I was grinding through my business degree. We were opposites in many ways. She was spontaneous and creative, while I was methodical and practical. But somehow, we balanced each other out. After graduation, we got married, despite our parents' concerns about rushing in. The early years were magical. We traveled when we could afford it, stayed up late talking about our dreams, and supported each other through career changes and financial struggles. When Gloria got pregnant with Dennis, we were over the moon. Just a year later, Russell came along, and our family was complete. I worked my ass off, climbing the corporate ladder at Crawford Financial. Started as an account manager and fought my way up to executive director through sheer determination and countless late nights. Gloria put her museum curator aspirations on hold to raise our boys, though she kept her hand in the art world, organizing local exhibitions and maintaining connections. "You're building something important," she would say when I'd apologize for missing dinner again. "We're in this together, Lance." And I believed her. Why wouldn't I? We were the couple other people envied, still holding hands at school functions, still making each other laugh after all these years, still having date nights when we could manage it. As the boys grew older and more independent, Gloria started taking on more work. She landed a part-time position at the Gardner Museum, which eventually became full-time. I was proud of her, watching her reclaim her passion and excel at it. Our house became filled with art books and exhibition catalogs. The boys rolled their eyes when she dragged them to galleries, but I could see they were proud of her too. Last Thanksgiving, Gloria's younger sister Dana joined us. She had just returned from a 3-year stint with Doctors Without Borders, working as a nurse in crisis zones across Central Africa. Dana was always the wild card in Gloria's family, brilliant, adventurous, and fiercely independent. 10 years younger than Gloria, she had a confidence and clarity about her that I'd always admired. "So what's next for you?" I asked Dana as we washed dishes after dinner. She shrugged, her hands deep in soapy water. "I'm thinking of settling down for a bit. Maybe find a position at a local hospital. Buy a plant or two. Well, you know you're always welcome here if you need a place to crash while you figure things out," I offered. "Thanks, Lance," she said, giving me a genuine smile. "It's good to know there are still some solid people in this world. If only I'd known then how much I would come to depend on that solidarity. If only I'd realized how quickly a life built over 2 decades could unravel. Because despite the picture-perfect family photos and the congratulatory comment from friends about how we'd figured it out, our foundation was cracking beneath the surface. But like I said, hindsight is 20/20ths. And sometimes the cracks are only visible after everything has already fallen apart. The turning point in our lives came when both our sons headed off to college. Dennis had repeated his senior year due to a football injury that put him behind, so he and Russell ended up leaving for State University together. I remember helping them pack up their dorm supplies, Gloria fussing over whether they had enough towels and sheets. "They'll be fine," I told her, closing the trunk of Dennis's car with a solid thud. "They're grown men now." Dennis, all 6'2" of him, pulled his mother into a bear hug. "Dad's right, Mom. Stop worrying." Russell, always the more sensitive one, promised to call every Sunday. I pulled them both aside before they left. "Your mother and I worked hard to give you this opportunity," I said, my hands on their shoulders. "Make something of it. And remember, a Blair man stands on his own 2 feet." After they drove away, Gloria and I stood in the driveway, her hand clutched in mine. Our home suddenly felt 10 times larger and eerily quiet. I threw myself into work. Crawford Financial was pursuing an aggressive expansion, and as executive director, I needed to secure new clients and stabilize our position. 14-hour days became the norm. When I'd get home, Gloria would often be asleep or busy with some project for the museum. One night, I made it home early. I'd closed a 7-figure deal with a pension fund and wanted to celebrate with my wife. I picked up Thai food from her favorite place and a bottle of the Pinot Noir we discovered on our trip to Oregon wine country 5 years ago. I found Gloria in her home office, so engrossed in her laptop, she didn't hear me come in. I set down the food and wine on the kitchen counter and walked up behind her, placing my hands on her shoulders. She jumped, quickly closing her laptop. "Jesus, Lance, you scared me." "Sorry," I said, frowning at her reaction. "Just wanted to surprise you. I brought dinner." She forced a smile. "That's sweet. Let me just finish up here." As she stood, I caught a glimpse of her screen, a text conversation. I only saw one line. "He has no idea. See you tomorrow." Something cold settled in my stomach, but I pushed it away. This was Gloria, my wife of 20 years, the mother of my children. I trusted her completely. That was my first mistake. The changes in Gloria's behavior became impossible to ignore. Her museum work suddenly required late nights and weekend special events. Her phone became an extension of her hand, and she'd take calls in another room, her voice hushed. When I'd check our shared calendar, I'd find blocks labeled museum function with no details. I'm not a man who jumps to conclusions. I built my career on facts and evidence. So instead of confronting her with nothing but suspicions, I decided to gather information. One Tuesday, I told my assistant to clear my afternoon schedule. I left the office at 2 p.m., not bothering to tell Gloria. I parked across from the Gardner Museum in a rental car. My silver Audi was too recognizable, and waited. At 5:30, the museum closed. Most staff filtered out by 6 o'clock. Gloria emerged at 6:30, accompanied by a tall man with salt and pepper hair and a trimmed beard. I'd never seen him before. He wore an expensive-looking blazer and walked with the confidence of someone used to getting what he wanted. As they reached his car, a black Tesla, he placed his hand on the small of Gloria's back. She leaned into his touch. My stomach tightened into a knot as they climbed into his car and pulled away. I followed at a safe distance, weaving through Boston traffic until they pulled up to the Ritz-Carlton. The valet took their car, and they walked inside, his hand now resting on her hip. Part of me wanted to storm in there, to confront them in whatever overpriced suite they'd booked, to demand answers in front of the man who thought he could take what was mine. But that's not who Lance Blair is. I don't cause scenes. I don't act on impulse. I make calculated decisions. So I drove home, poured myself 3 fingers of Macallan 18, and waited. I pulled up the GPS tracker app I'd installed on Gloria's phone last week, another piece of evidence in my growing case. The Blue Dot remained stationary at the hotel. By the time Gloria walked through her door at 10:15 p.m., I was in my home office with the lights dimmed, nursing my second drink. "Lance, you're home early," she called out, surprise evident in her voice. I stepped into the hallway. "Board meeting ran late?" I asked, my voice steady despite the rage simmering beneath. "Yes," she said, setting down her purse. "We're finalizing the winter exhibition. You know how Philip could drone on." I took a slow sip of my scotch. Interesting. I didn't realize board meetings were held in the presidential suite at the Ritz-Carlton now. Her face went pale. "Lance, I can explain." "Don't." I cut her off, raising my hand. "I saw you. With him. Whoever he is." Gloria sank onto the bench in our entryway, her shoulders slumping. "It's not what you think," she whispered. I laughed, a harsh sound even in my own ears. 20 years of marriage, and that's the best you can come up with. "It's not what you think." I walked away before she could respond. I needed space to think, to plan my next move. Because one thing was crystal clear. The life I thought we had was a lie. For the next week, Gloria and I engaged in a Cold War. We moved around each other like strangers, sharing a house but little else. I slept in the guest room, buried myself in work, and came home late enough to avoid dinner together. I needed time to think, to evaluate my options. On Friday night, Gloria cornered me in the kitchen. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail instead of her usual polished style. "We need to talk, Lance," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "This silence is killing me." I poured myself a glass of water, leaning against the counter. Fine. Talk. James is just a friend, she began, referring to the bearded man I'd seen her with. A colleague from a museum. Friends don't book hotel rooms together, I replied evenly. Gloria looked down. It's complicated. We haven't been connecting, Lance. You're always working. I'm always at the museum. We're like roommates, not husband and wife. I set my glass down with enough force to make her flinch. So, instead of talking to me about it, you decided to cheat with someone else? That's your solution? It's not like that, she insisted, tears welling up. James understands me. He listens. When was the last time you really listened to me? I laughed bitterly. Oh, I'm listening now. Loud and clear. Gloria stepped closer, placing her hand on my arm. I resisted the urge to pull away. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she said, her voice steadier. About us. About what we both need. Something in her tone set off warning bells in my head. What if we tried something different, she continued. A different arrangement. One that gives us both some freedom. I stared at her, not comprehending at first. Then it clicked. Are you suggesting an open marriage? She nodded slowly. Many couples find it helps them reconnect. It removes the pressure, the lies. We could set boundaries, rules. Let me get this straight, I interrupted, my voice dangerously quiet. You've been cheating on me, and now you want my permission to continue? That's what this is. No, Lance, that's not. My wife wanted an open marriage, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Unbelievable. Gloria's expression hardened. I'm trying to save our marriage. To be honest about what I need. What you need, I repeated. Not what we need. Not what our family needs. The boys are grown, Lance. It's just us now. And yes, this is what I need. She straightened her shoulders. I'm going to continue seeing James. I'd rather do it with your knowledge than behind your back. The question is whether you can accept this new reality. 20 years of marriage, and this was what it had come to. An ultimatum disguised as a compromise. I looked at the woman I'd built my life with and felt nothing but cold resolve. I need time to think, I said finally. Don't take too long, Gloria replied. I'm not going to put my life on hold anymore. As she walked away, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Not for her. For me. I didn't need time to think. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I just needed to prepare. Monday morning, I called my lawyer, Frank Donovan, an old college buddy who'd helped set up my compensation package at Crawford Financial. I need divorce papers drawn up, I told him. And I need them fast. Lance, slow down, Frank cautioned. Let's discuss strategy first. Massachusetts is an equitable distribution state. If Gloria's been unfaithful, I have evidence, I assured him. Just get the paperwork ready. Next, I called a locksmith. By Tuesday afternoon, every lock in our house had been changed. I transferred half of our joint savings into my personal account. Not a penny more, despite Frank's suggestion that I secure my assets. I wasn't trying to screw Gloria over financially. I just wanted out. While Gloria was at her weekly museum board meeting, I packed her essential belongings, clothes, toiletries, jewelry, personal items. I boxed her art books and supplies carefully. Whatever else she wanted, she could arrange to collect later, with Frank present. At 8:30 p.m., I heard her key in the old lock. Then a pause, followed by more persistent jiggling. Finally, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and stood blocking the entrance. Gloria's confusion morphed into anger when she saw the suitcases and boxes stacked in the foyer behind me. What the hell is this, Lance? She demanded. This is me not accepting your new reality. I replied calmly. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. I handed her an envelope containing the divorce papers. Frank will be in touch about dividing the assets. I've been more than fair. Gloria stared at the envelope, then at me, shock written across her face. You can't be serious. This is our home. Was our home. I corrected. You can stay with James, or at a hotel. I don't really care. Her shock gave way to fury. You can't just lock me out. This is my house too. Should have thought about that before you started sleeping around, I said, my voice even. And before you had the audacity to ask for an open marriage. You selfish bastard, she hissed, tears springing to her eyes. 20 years together. And this is how you handle a rough patch? By throwing me out. I felt a momentary pang of doubt, but squashed it. A rough patch is when we disagree about vacation plans or argue about the thermostat setting. Infidelity and ultimatums are deal breakers. I'll fight this, she threatened, waving the envelope. I'll take you for everything. You're welcome to try, I said, unmoved. But the prenup is pretty clear about adultery. That stopped her cold. We had signed a prenuptial agreement at her father's insistence, ironically to protect her family's modest art collection. Now it would protect me. As Gloria stood speechless on our porch, my phone rang. It was Dana, Gloria's sister. Hey Dana, I answered, maintaining eye contact with Gloria. Yes, I got your message. Tomorrow works. You can stay in the guest room as long as you need. Gloria's eyes widened. My sister? You're talking to my sister? I ignored her. Great. See you tomorrow, I said to Dana, then hung up. Since when are you and Dana so chummy? Gloria demanded. She called looking for you. I explained. I told her what happened. She needs a place to stay while she looks for an apartment in Boston. I offered her the guest room. You're letting my sister stay here after throwing me out? Gloria was incredulous. Dana didn't cheat on me, I replied simply, then closed the door. Through the window, I watched Gloria stand there for a long moment before finally gathering her luggage and walking to her car, her shoulders shaking with sobs. I felt no satisfaction, just a hollow relief. The hardest part was done. Now I just had to rebuild. Dana arrived the next morning with one suitcase and her nursing credentials. She'd already secured an interview at Massachusetts General Hospital and was eager to put down roots after years of global humanitarian work. The guest room is all yours, I told her, carrying her bag upstairs. Stay as long as you need. I still can't believe Gloria would do that to you, Dana said, following me. You two always seem so solid. I shrugged. Apparently not solid enough. In the days that followed, my home transformed from a tension-filled war zone back into a peaceful sanctuary. Dana was neat, considerate, and surprisingly easy to live with. Unlike her sister, she didn't leave coffee cups in every room or play NPR at full volume on Sunday mornings. After her successful interview, we celebrated with takeout from my favorite Thai place. The conversation flowed naturally as we sat in the kitchen, trading stories over pad thai and Singha beer. Gloria called me again today, Dana mentioned, twirling noodles around her fork. She wants me to talk sense into you. And what did you tell her? I asked, genuinely curious. Dana met my eyes directly. I told her she should have thought about consequences before sleeping with James. I raised my beer in appreciation. To clarity, she echoed, clinking her bottle against mine. The next week passed in a blur of work and legal meetings. Frank was building a solid case, and Gloria's initial bravado had given way to a more practical approach. She'd hired her own attorney, and negotiations about the house and investments were proceeding civilly, if not amicably. Meanwhile, Dana settled into a routine at Mass General, working night shifts in the emergency department. Often I'd come home to find dinner waiting, with a note about reheating instructions. Other times, I'd make breakfast for her when she returned from an overnight shift, exhausted but fulfilled. One evening, I was reviewing acquisition proposals in my home office when Dana knocked on the doorframe, 2 glasses of scotch in hand. You look like you could use this, she said, offering me one. I accepted gratefully. Long day. Want to talk about it? She asked, settling into the leather chair across from my desk. So I did. I explained the complex merger Crawford Financial was navigating, the regulatory hurdles, the competing interests. Dana listened intently, asking surprisingly insightful questions. You actually understand all this? I asked, impressed. She smiled. I ran the finances for our Doctors Without Borders unit in Sudan. Had to stretch every dollar and account for every bandage. Business is business, whether it's hedge funds or hospitals. Looking at her then, intelligent, compassionate, and unfazed by complexity, I felt something shift inside me. Not desire, not yet, but possibility. What? She asked, noticing my expression. Nothing, I replied, smiling slightly. Just thinking that some Blair men aren't as smart as they think they are. Meaning, Gloria got the lesser sister, I said simply. Dana's cheeks flushed, but she held my gaze. Careful, Lance. I'm still your soon-to-be ex-wife's sister. And I'm still your sister's soon-to-be ex-husband, I countered. Complicated, isn't it? We sat in silence, the air between us charged with unspoken thoughts and unexpected connection. Sunday morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. Following the aroma downstairs, I found Dana in the kitchen, humming to herself as she flipped pancakes. She'd changed from her hospital scrubs into jeans and a simple blue sweater that highlighted her eyes. "Morning," I said, pouring myself coffee from the carafe she'd prepared. "You didn't have to do all this." "Night shift ended early," she explained, "and I was hungry. Figured you might be too." We ate breakfast on the patio, enjoying the crisp fall air. The divorce papers lay on my desk inside, awaiting my final signature. One pen stroke, and my marriage would be officially over. I'd been putting it off, not out of reluctance, but from a strange desire to time it right. "Any plans today?" Dana asked, sipping her coffee. "Finalizing some paperwork," I replied vaguely. "You?" "Unpacking the last of my boxes. Then maybe a run along the Charles." After breakfast, I helped Dana with the dishes. Our movements in the kitchen surprisingly synchronized for two people who'd only been sharing a space for a few weeks. As I handed her a plate to dry, our fingers brushed. She looked up, our eyes meeting, and something electric passed between us. "Lance," she began, her voice soft. My phone rang, breaking the moment. It was Dennis calling for our weekly check-in. I stepped away to take it, relieved and disappointed at the interruption. Later that afternoon, I found Dana in the living room, curled up with a medical journal. She'd twisted her hair into a messy bun, glasses perched on her nose, the studious counterpart to Gloria's polished sophistication. "Dana," I said, sitting across from her, "we need to talk about what's happening here." She closed her journal. "And what is happening here, Lance?" I chose my words carefully. "I'm still technically married to your sister. The divorce will be final soon, but right now, things are complicated." "I know that," she said steadily. "I'm not looking to jump into anything. But there is something," I pressed, "between us. I'm not imagining it." Dana set her journal aside. "You're not imagining it. But it doesn't have to be acted upon. Not yet." Her maturity was refreshing after months of Gloria's emotional manipulation. No games, no hidden agendas, just honest acknowledgement of reality. "I respect that," I told her. "And I respect you. Too much to complicate your relationship with your sister any more than it already is." Dana smiled sadly. "Gloria and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's always been the beautiful one, the artistic one, the one who gets what she wants. I was the serious one, the reliable one. The honest one," I added. "The one with integrity." Her eyes met mine. "I've always admired you, Lance. Even before all this happened. You're solid, dependable, the kind of man who means what he says. And right now, I'm saying we should wait," I said, though every instinct urged me otherwise. "Until the divorce is final. Until the dust settles." She nodded, then stood and crossed the room to where I sat. Leaning down, she placed a soft, brief kiss on my lips. "I'll wait," she whispered, "but not forever." As she walked away, I touched my lips, still feeling the impression of hers. Tomorrow, I decided I would sign those papers first thing. Some new beginnings were worth rushing toward. That night, I dreamed of Dana, not in some passionate embrace, but simply sitting beside me on a porch, our hands intertwined, watching the sunset. In the dream, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: peace. The weather turned cold as November settled over Boston. I signed the divorce papers, and life began taking on a new rhythm. Dana and I maintained a respectful distance, our mutual attraction acknowledged, but deferred until the divorce was final. One stormy evening, as rain lashed against the windows, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Opening the door, I found Gloria standing on the porch, soaked and shivering. Her face was bruised, with a cut above her right eye. "Gloria." I stepped back instinctively. "What happened to you? I need to talk to you," she said, her voice breaking. "Please, Lance." Against my better judgment, I let her in. Dana was working a night shift at the hospital, so the house was empty except for us. Gloria stood in my entryway, water pooling at her feet. In a harsh overhead light, her injuries looked even worse. "Who did this to you?" I asked, handing her a towel. "James," she admitted quietly. "We had a fight. About us." A complex mix of emotions hit me. Anger at this man I barely knew, concern for Gloria despite everything, and a deep relief that I'd gotten out when I did. "You should report him," I said firmly. She shook her head. It's not that simple. I needed somewhere to go. I couldn't think of anywhere else. I directed her to the kitchen and made coffee while she sat shivering at the island. Old habits die hard. Lance, she began, wrapping her hand around the mug. I made a terrible mistake. All of it. James, the open marriage suggestion, everything. I want to come home. I stared at her, stunned by her audacity. That's not happening, Gloria. We have 20 years together, she pleaded. A history. A family. You can't just throw that away. I didn't. I replied evenly. You did. When you started sleeping with James. When you gave me your ultimatum about an open marriage. Gloria's expression hardened. Is this about Dana? Are you sleeping with my sister now? The accusation hit me like a slap. That's none of your business. She laughed bitterly. So that's a yes. My wife wanted an open marriage. So I took her younger sister. Is that your revenge? Get out, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. You hypocrite, she continued, tears streaming down her face. You acted so righteous when I suggested an open marriage, and now you're sleeping with my sister in our bed. First, I countered, Dana and I haven't slept together. Second, this isn't our bed anymore. And third, even if we were together, it would be different. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I didn't break vows. The front door opened, and Dana walked in, still in her scrubs. She stopped short when she saw Gloria. What's going on? She asked, taking in her sister's injured face and my tense posture. Ask your boyfriend, Gloria spat. Apparently he's moved on pretty quickly. Dana's eyes widened, but she maintained her composure. Gloria, what happened to your face? James happened, I explained. She came here looking for shelter. Dana immediately shifted into nurse mode, approaching her sister. Let me look at that cut. It might need stitches. Gloria shoved her away. Don't touch me. How could you, Dana? My husband? Really? Ex-husband? I corrected. And nothing's happened between us. Yet, Gloria added venomously. The tension in the kitchen was suffocating. Dana and Gloria stared at each other, decades of sisterly competition magnified by the current circumstances. Nothing happened before you left, I told Gloria firmly. Dana moved in weeks after you moved out. Any feelings that develop happen naturally, and we haven't acted on them. You expect me to believe that? Gloria scoffed. Dana crossed her arms. Believe what you want, but it's the truth. Unlike some people, we respect marriage vows. Gloria turned to me, her voice softening. Lance, please. We can work this out. Couples therapy, a fresh start, whatever it takes. Don't throw away 20 years for some fling with my sister. This isn't about Dana, I replied. This is about you and me. About trust that can't be rebuilt. People make mistakes, Gloria pleaded. I made a mistake. A 4-month affair isn't a mistake, I countered. It's a choice. Multiple choices, made day after day. Dana approached her sister cautiously. Gloria, let me help you with those injuries. Then we can talk about finding you a safe place to stay. Not here, but somewhere away from James. Don't pretend you care, Gloria snapped. You've always wanted what I had. My dolls when we were kids, my prom date in high school, and now my husband. That's not fair, Dana replied, her composure slipping. I've always supported you, even when you didn't deserve it. Like now, Gloria shot back. Is this your version of support? Sleeping under my roof, making moves on my husband. Ex-husband, I corrected again. And this is my roof now, Gloria. We agreed on the settlement. Gloria's face contorted with anger and pain. You two deserve each other. Both of you, so self-righteous, so convinced you're doing nothing wrong. Well, guess what? Everyone's going to see through this. Our friends, our family, they'll all know what really happened. Dana stepped forward. And what had really happened, Gloria? You cheated. Lance kicked you out. I needed a place to stay after returning from Africa. The rest evolved naturally, and we haven't even acted on it. Yet, Gloria added, echoing her earlier accusation. Yet, Dana acknowledged firmly. But unlike you, we'll wait until he's actually divorced. Gloria lunged suddenly, slapping Dana hard across the face. I moved quickly, stepping between them. That's enough, I said, my voice commanding. Gloria, you need to leave. Now. Or what? She challenged, tears streaming down her face. Or I call the police and report your assault on Dana. I replied evenly. And then I call my lawyer to handle the restraining order paperwork. Gloria looked between us, searching for any sign of relenting. Finding none, she grabbed her purse. This isn't over, she warned. You'll regret this, both of you. The only thing I regret, I said quietly, is not seeing who you really were sooner. After Gloria stormed out, Dana and I stood in stunned silence. I gently touched her reddened cheek. Are you okay? She nodded, leaning slightly into my palm. She always did have a temper. I'm sorry you got dragged into this, I said sincerely. Dana looked up at me, her eyes clear and determined. I'm not. I'm exactly where I want to be. In that moment, with Gloria's accusations still echoing in the house, I knew with absolute certainty that whatever was developing between Dana and me was genuine. Not revenge, not convenience, but something unexpectedly real. 6 months passed like the turning of seasons. Winter gave way to spring, then summer settled over Boston with its humid embrace. My divorce from Gloria was finalized without further drama. Her assault on Dana had effectively ended any leverage she thought she had. Dana and I took things slowly, officially dating only after the divorce papers were signed. We kept our relationship private at first, not out of shame, but out of respect for the complicated family dynamics. Dennis and Russell took the news of our divorce about as well as could be expected. They were adults now, capable of understanding that relationships sometimes fail. When I eventually told them about Dana, they were surprised but supportive. Mom made her choices, Dennis said during a video call. You deserve to be happy, Dad. Russell, always more sensitive, added, Dana's always been cool. Just give us some time to get used to the idea. That was all I could ask for. Gloria eventually moved to Chicago for a curator position at the Art Institute. According to mutual friends, she was doing well professionally, though she remained single. James had disappeared from her life shortly after their violent confrontation. A blessing, though she probably wouldn't see it that way. Today, Dana and I stood in the backyard of my house, hosting a small gathering. Both my sons were home for summer break, along with Dana's parents who had flown in from Arizona. They'd been understandably shocked by the situation initially, but seeing Dana's happiness had won them over. To new beginnings, I toasted, raising my glass as we sat around the patio table. And to honesty, Dana added, her eyes meeting mine with a warmth that still surprised me. Later, as everyone mingled, Dennis approached me by the grill. You know, Dad, I was skeptical at first, he admitted, watching Dana laugh with his brother across the yard. Dating Mom's sister seemed complicated. I nodded, acknowledging the understatement. But I get it now, he continued. You and Dana make sense together. There's no drama, no games. Just respect. His observation struck me deeply. Respect. That was exactly what Dana and I had built our relationship on. Mutual respect, honesty, and a determination not to repeat past mistakes. That night, after everyone had gone, Dana and I sat on the porch swing, her head resting on my shoulder. Move in officially, I said, breaking our comfortable silence. No more pretending you still use the guest room when your parents visit. She laughed softly. Are you sure? It's only been 6 months. I'm sure, I replied, taking her hand. We've wasted enough time living by other people's rules and expectations. Dana looked up at me, her expression serious. No regrets? About how this all started. I consider the question carefully. I regret that Gloria was hurt. I regret not seeing the problems in our marriage sooner. But I can't regret finding you. Some things, no matter how complicated their beginnings, are simply right. She kissed me then, a promise sealed under the summer stars. Some might call what we have scandalous, the divorced man and his ex-wife's sister. But we know the truth. What we have isn't scandal, it's redemption.
Bye.